Today we got Brian Newton's truck on the dyno. It's an 06 with 239,000 roughly. He has 50 horsepower injectors and a Tater 6265 on it with a fast 150. We already have our custom tuning on it. EFI, we're going to customize the tune for the 50 horsepower nozzles and see what we can get out of the 50 horsepower nozzles and the stock CP3. Looking over the data log for Brian's truck, you can see rail pressure is falling down a little bit for a stock CP3 truck with 50 horsepower injectors. There's a few little changes that I can make here and there, see if we can squeeze a little bit more power out of it. We made 563 with peak power at 31 to 3200. We made 982 foot-pounds of torque at 2350 RPM. Gonna make a few adjustments to the tune and see if we can't squeeze a little bit more horsepower out of it. Just got done doing an update on Brian's truck. Added a little bit more fuel and adjusted a few other things, timing, pilot timing, things like that, try to squeeze a little bit more power out of it. You can see that his stock CP3 is completely maxed out at wide open throttle as far as, and it's dropping rail pressure down to 22,000. That's about all that we're going to be able to squeeze out of it. We ended up at 589 and 1,056 foot-pounds of torque. And he's also has stock head studs or head bolts in the truck and doesn't want to adjust the wastegate on the turbo anymore for fear of blowing a head gasket. So I think we are going to call it a wrap today on Brian's truck. So with this truck's got 50 horsepower nozzles, a Tater 6265, fast 150 with Firepunk EFI Live tuning, and he made 589 horsepower and 1,056 foot-pounds of torque.
All right, so I'm working on getting some hardware together for our new accessory billet mounts here. I showed you guys these things a little bit a while back. We've got our first run in. I got pre-order shipped out, and we still have a number of these in stock. Just thought I'd show them to you a little bit again, but we tried to make them fairly modular to where it's the AC mount and the actual lower radiator outlet is separate, so that you can either utilize an AC mount if you need it or do without. Then we also just did straight cut O-ring fittings in the lower and the upper, so that you can put on whatever size AN adapter that you need. So if you want to run -20 or 16 or whatever, I know it varies some depending on whether you're doing a remote mount radiator or a factory location. But so yeah, these things, we've got I think about 10 of them in stock. We are a little bit low on the AC mounts. Sold more of those than I thought we might, so if you want in on this run, get those while we still have them. Otherwise it may be another month or so, but we've got a number of the of everything except for the billet AC mounts in stock.
Hey guys, today we got a 2005 Ford with a Cummins in it. This is a Harley Davidson Edition truck with a 6.7 liter. It's a stock 6.7 with 60% over Exergy injectors, ARP 2000 head stud, stock CP3, and a 366/74/90 on a T3 foot manifold. We're going to dyno tune it, see what we can make, and send it down the road. Okay, first pull we did 566, did 1125 torque or something like that. That was tune 4, which we have set at 2400 microseconds. And we can see here the stock CP3. If you look at this purple line, when this comes down to flat line, and then our milliamps that is at 29 milliamps, that means the FCA is running wide open on the CP3. So I'm going to turn it up to tune 5, which is going to increase our pulse width from 2400 up to 2600. But then we may see rail pressure not be able to keep up, and it's probably not going to make much more power. But this is why we dyno tune 4. We find the balance between maxing out the injectors versus what the CP3 can support. So we're going to turn it up and see what we make. Okay, this was run on tune 5, where we actually added 200 microseconds to the injectors, went from 2400 US to 2600 US. And you'll see in the beginning of the run, we're only making 21,000 PSI rail pressure in the beginning of the run, and we made a peak of 23.5 rail. And then at the end of the run, it dropped down to 21,700. And the CP3 is running wide open. So if we look at the data log, or look at the dyno graph, we see that we made peak power. We made more peak power. We went from 566 to 573 with a bigger tune. But in the higher RPM, where rail pressure fell off, we actually made less power because rail pressure couldn't keep up. So that tells me that we're better off backing off the injector pulse width a little bit so rail pressure can maintain, and we can maintain that power curve all the way through to higher RPM. I'm guessing we're being limited by the T3 foot of the turbo, but I'm going to pull the air filter off, just make sure that we're not getting any restriction. We can get a comparison with air filter and without. Okay, we ran that same tune again without the air filter, and you can see across the board we pretty much made 10 horsepower more all the way across. Made a peak of 584 without the air filter. But with no air filter, you have no protection of your engine, and you dust your cylinder walls if you run it without an air filter. So if you're racing, it might be worth that extra 10 horsepower, but daily driving, it's not really worth 10 horsepower to take a chance of ruining an engine. Okay, this was tune 2, which is at 1600 microseconds, and we did 473. And you can see here the rail pressure desired versus actual maintained perfectly because we're using a lot less fuel quantity. The CP3 has no problem keeping up. But I like to try to give about 150 RPM window on a CSP5 where you can turn it up, turn it down, 150 horsepower. So I'm going to reflash the truck. I'm going to make tune 2, try to shoot for like 425, something like that, and then make some adjustments for tune 5 like we saw in the data log earlier. And then tune 1 on this specific truck I have set for a no start condition so that he can use that for theft deterrent. If he wants to park his truck sometime for a week, he can leave it on tune 1, and somebody breaks in, tries to start it, it won't start. Okay, this is new tune 2. We were at 473 horsepower and we wanted to try to knock it down around 400. So I took 5 degrees of timing out of it. The old tune had 25 degrees peak timing. This has peak of 20 degrees of timing. And I went from 1600 microseconds down to 1400 microseconds. And that knocked right at 71 horsepower out of it. So 402 horsepower on tune 2. And then we'll be 584 on tune 5. And then we're limited by the stock CP3. If we turn the fuel up anymore, we're out of CP3. So if he wants to make more power, we know he needs a CP3, and we're also getting close to out of turbo on that T3 foot. It's just bottlenecking everything on the stock manifold.